Hello, web development friends. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some mistakes I made in my first 6 months, my first year of freelance web development, and what I learned from those mistakes. But first of all, I just want to say I've noticed that there are so many new people here, so thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed or commented or liked a video. Thanks to anyone who's watched, even if you didn't really like the video. I truly appreciate it. I just wrapped up some very large freelance projects and I'm going to be making time for this channel. I'm really excited about it. And so my promise to myself for the rest of this year, 2020, is that I'm going to do my absolute best to get a video out every single Saturday. So that's my goal, and who knows? Maybe I'll have some time for midweek videos as well. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though. Okay, back to our topic, which is mistakes that I made as a new freelance web developer. You know, if you Google this question or something like it, you're going to find a lot of great information out there on things you can do to prepare yourself for freelancing and common mistakes to avoid. And of course, all of that is great. You want to have savings before you start. Hopefully you can ease into it, and you want to find ways to be professional and organized. And there are many good tips out there. This video for me is more like a look back to my first 6 months and my first year of freelancing, and these are mistakes that I made in dealing with clients and working on projects, and sort of some mindset shifts that needed to happen for me to be more successful as a freelance developer. So these are things that I personally needed to do differently. And hopefully if you're someone thinking about freelancing or just getting started with freelancing, hopefully these will make your life easier. So let's get into it. Let's get started with the first one, which is about communicating with clients. As I look back to a year or a year and a half ago when I was first getting started with freelance development, one of the biggest mistakes I made or things that needed to change was that I was afraid or hesitant about communication with the client. And it's easy. I think this is a common thing for new freelancers because it's really easy to see the client as the bad guy, right? They want things from you. What if they don't like your idea or your design? Or what if they aren't happy with your progress on their project? Or what if this is a potential client and you give them a quote and they think your price is too expensive, so they go on to the next freelancer? There are a lot of things you could be nervous about, but really this is a big mistake. And you need to remember that the client is not the bad guy. The client is the person who is going to pay you. And the client is a normal person like you and I. They have a busy schedule, so if you can save them time, great. And in fact, by getting on a call with them or establishing a good flow of communication, you're going to be able to understand what they want much better. And so actually that will save a lot of time for both of you in the end. So these days, I try to be much more proactive about my communication rather than sitting back and waiting for the client to ask me questions or ask me for updates. So if it's a potential client, I always want to get on a call with them to see if I can help them with their business. And sometimes you really save yourself, because I have had calls with people who I know would have been horrible clients to work with, and I may not have caught that through an email. And with existing clients, like I said, I try to control the flow of communication. So my clients generally know when to expect updates from me. I'll tell them, hey, expect an update from me with my progress on your project on Thursday. And then if I run into some trouble, maybe I'll send them a message before that on Wednesday, and I'll say, hey, ran into a couple problems, but I think we're still good for our original deadline. Actually expect an update from me on Friday instead of on Thursday, and I'll send you a full update, and hopefully we can continue on with this project. You can give me some feedback. The second mistake that I made as a new freelance developer was not adding enough padding to my time estimates. Even if this is a fixed rate project, you always need to factor in the time that you're going to be working on it, both for what you charge the client and for the deadline that you set with the client. And It's as a new freelancer, if you see a project that you think is going to take you 10 hours, it's really easy or tempting to tell the client that, oh, I think these will be quick edits, or I think this will take 10 hours. But you need to tell them 15. Maybe you forgot to factor in all the back and forth communication. Maybe you'll be waiting on them for some content. Maybe you build everything perfectly and then the client says, you know what, that is what I asked for, but I'd like to make some changes here, here, and here. But no matter what's going on or what kind of project it is, there will always be something that takes you a little longer than you think it will. So as much as you want to be able to quote that project at a lower price or give them a deadline that is sooner, you need to add some padding for yourself. And if you do add padding, you might be able to deliver early or under budget, which will impress the client much more than going over budget or delivering a project late. So save yourself and your client some stress and add some padding when you're doing those calculations to see what you need to charge and what kind of deadlines you're going to set for that next project or that next round of edits. On that same token, another mistake that I made as a new developer was not planning enough. And by that, what I mean is when I'm starting a new project or even during a project as I'm going to start working on the next round of changes or some functionality, I needed to just take a step back, look for examples online, figure out how I was going to do it beforehand. Let's say that you're going to build a carousel or a slider for a website, for a blog, and the most recent 10 posts will cycle through that slider. Well, what slider are you going to use? What is it going to look like? What's the design going to be? So now these days, no matter what I'm building, whether I'm replicating a design or I am more in control of how it looks and acts, I always look for examples on CodePen and on GitHub. I try to find code from people who are better than I am, and I just take time to really think through the steps and the process before I dive in and start coding or start actually building the thing. And this is super common for all new developers. I know it. These days, I'm actually trying to learn design so I can totally design a project first before diving in and building it. And just remember that planning stage is important and it will save you a lot of time in the long run. The next mistake that I made was a big one, and that was not collecting a substantial deposit from the client up front. Now, generally I do get a deposit, usually 50% from the client before even starting the project, but there were a couple times where a client who I had already worked with on several projects, I didn't insist on getting a deposit from them in the beginning. Once it was just a very small deposit, and actually due to COVID, the project just dragged on and on and on, and it's basically finished, but here we are more than 6 or 8 months later, and I still haven't really gotten paid for it. Of course, the website's not up. I haven't given away free work, but I should have collected an initial deposit. The other time was another client I had worked with before, and after pretty much finishing the project, they disappeared and I could not get a hold of them. So now, whether or not I've worked with them or not, I always collect at least a substantial amount, preferably 50% upfront before even doing anything to get started with a project. We're on to the last two mistakes. And this mistake is being afraid to fire a client. This is something I struggled with, and a lot of freelancers will talk about it being a benefit of freelancing that you can fire clients. But I know it's very hard for new freelancers, at least it was for me. And when you have a big client, especially, it's a known quantity. Even if you don't like working with them, you know how they like to work. You know that they're going to have projects for you, and it's money coming in, right? But and some clients are good clients. They're just a little bit annoying, right? Maybe they hold you to a high standard, but they pay well. But there are clients who are definitely bad clients, and they just drain the life out of you and you are not excited to work on their projects because of it. Maybe they're just not good people to work with. But whatever it is, once you realize that and you say, you know what, I just don't think things are going to get any better. I can't get excited about working with them. They're just not a good person. Or if there's anything at all sketchy about their payment, drop them, fire that client. You'll be so much happier for it. At the beginning of 2020, I told 2 of my biggest clients that I couldn't continue working for them, and my life got so much better. And what you don't realize is by holding on to that bad client, you are keeping yourself from finding good clients. And the internet is a big place. There are a lot of good clients. So don't be afraid to fire the bad ones. And the last mistake I made as a new developer that I'm going to talk about is that I wasn't thinking big enough. I should have been thinking much bigger from the get-go. And I'm talking about creative ways to find new clients locally and online, pitching agencies for overflow work. I'm talking about charging clients more. I'm talking about suggesting clients new products, new designs, new ideas that come up. I'm talking about hiring people to work for me and outsourcing work that I have, because I'm not going to be an expert at everything, but if I know a reliable person who I can outsource certain things to, I can take on more projects. So these are just a few examples, but I really should have been thinking bigger. The internet is a big place, and some clients might only be willing to pay $300 for a project that other clients are willing to pay $3,000. So don't just settle for these small projects at first or small ideas, but you can make a very, very good living as a freelancer online. The internet is a big place, so don't sell yourself short and start thinking bigger. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Leave your questions or comments down below and I'll respond. Thanks again, and check back next week for next week's video. Super excited about everything that's going on here at the channel. So I hope you have an awesome day and go out there and earn those tacos.